Chris Godinez, licensed professional counselor, also the host of We Need to Talk with Chris Godinez on every Sunday at noon Arizona Mountain Standard Time on Facebook live streaming. Yes, this video is for educational and informational purposes only. If you feel you need a therapist, please go to Google, type in therapy, Psychology Today will pop up, your city, Psychology Today will pop up, click on that and we'll have all of the therapists in your area. Also, if you feel, the views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the ACA, the APA, or anybody else for that matter. Boom, shakalaka, done. Okay, so I did do a video on Sunday on bullies in the workplace. It is not up on YouTube yet because my computer was being funky dunky, so I had to put different videos together because my computer kept cutting out. So there's like 3 of them that I'm going to have to figure out how to edit together, and I'm working on it. So that will get up eventually. Some housekeeping matters here. It is perfectly okay for you guys to contact me through We Need to Talk with Chris Godinez on Facebook. That's okie dokie smoky. I don't mind that at all. Or you can contact me through the Chris Godinez LPC page. That's fine. Or you can reach me through my AHA counseling page. That's fine as well. What I don't want people doing is I don't want people contacting me on my personal page because I will not respond because that's my personal page. So don't message me to my personal page. You can message me to the public pages. That would be cool and groovy. Hello, Atlanta. Hi, Rich. And hi, Lori. So, and hi, Deborah. So anyway, so today, really quickly, I've only got about a half an hour. I just wanted to talk about regressing and backsliding because I had a couple of questions regarding, it seems like it's almost like it's like a cha-cha, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Is that normal? Yes, that is normal. Why? Because we are dealing with an abused brain. So what's going on? In one of the lectures that I went to in Atlanta, they had brain scan images of brains that were normal, abused brains, and then brains of people that had complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And what they found was that the brainstem, which is where the primal, urges, instincts, etc. are, that's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn was lit up like a Christmas tree 24/7, but other parts of the brain, like the prefrontal cortex, were not so engaged, which is interesting because the prefrontal cortex is where we do decision-making. We do, what to do next. Our sensor lives up there. Is this a good idea? Is this not a good idea? So what that says is that people who have been through multiple traumas, they're not engaging with their prefrontal cortex. So their decision-making is off. And it makes perfect sense because when you look at somebody who has been abused, they're in the fog. They're in fear, they're in obligation, and they're in guilt, which sends them into that primal brainstem area, that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn center, and it keeps them stuck there. And so they're not engaging the prefrontal cortex where you do your decision making. So it was really interesting to me to see that because that explains why it is so hard to get somebody to move from fight, flight, freeze, fawn into higher functioning decision making. What are the consequences? Let me look at this from an outside perspective. What are the options? If this, then this, kind of thing. Whereas when somebody is in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, they're acting on instinct, and the instinct isn't always right. So that was really a fascinating thing to me. So regressing is part of recovery. Let me just say that again. Regressing is part of recovery, just like relapse can be part of sobriety. So why? Because our brains are not fully engaged in that frontal cortex where we make the good decisions, okay? Because our brains are still working in that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn thing. So when somebody is coming out of an abusive relationship, there is still that primal instinct. So it's still, it's the inner child. So the inner child is the one running the show. The inner child is the one that's terrified of dying alone. The inner child is the one that's fearful of not having that romantic partner or not having that toxic parent in their lives because the inner child has not resolved that original wound. So I cannot stress this enough. Go get an inner child workbook. I don't care which one. It can be John Bachman. It can be Catherine Taylor. There's a lot of them out there, and they're all fairly good. Catherine Taylor seems to be fairly good. So get the Catherine Taylor one. Work on the inner child. Get with a good, caveat, good therapist, not a dumbass therapist. I've been hearing some horror stories lately, so that's really another reason why we need to get a hold of the ACA and start bending Gerard Larson's ear. He's the president. And Richard Yep is the CEO. So you need to get with a good therapist, and you need to work on that original wound. You need to work on that original caregiver wound that we keep trying to fix with either toxic friends, toxic romantic partners, etc., or staying in a toxic relationship with a toxic caregiver. So it's really super important that this original wound get fixed. And is it like a dance? Yes, it is. People will generally make a couple of steps forward, baby steps, baby steps, baby steps, and they'll do some things in the right direction, and then they'll freak out, and then they'll go back, and then they'll start making forward, and then they go back, and then they make forward, and then they go back. This is another reason why it takes between 1 and 7 times. On average, it's 7 times of trying to leave an abusive relationship before it actually sticks, because of that back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So really, the best thing that I can suggest is get with a good therapist, one that understands abuse, okay? Somebody who is well versed in this. Now, I've also had people contacting me going, please be my therapist, please be my therapist, please be my therapist. Here's the thing, guys, due to licensure, because the ACA is working on this, okay? What the ACA would eventually like to see is a national license so that there's mobility. Right now, there's no mobility. Each state is having a pissing contest with the state next to it and having a really hard time with reciprocity. So because of that, and because of licensure, which we have fought very, very hard to get, so that there is some sort of oversight on our profession, which I think is needed, honestly, because if you look at why people get in trouble with the board, it is mostly ethical issues. So, you know, sleeping with the client, taking money from them, borrowing money from them, you'd be surprised. I'm sitting there reading that shit going, what the actual, Anyway, the point being is that because of licensure, I can only counsel, like take on clients that are residents of Arizona. I cannot work with people outside of Arizona, and that includes foreign countries. Now, would I love to be able to work with people outside of Arizona? Yes. Would I love to work with people from foreign countries? You betcha. But since licensure-wise, I cannot do that, and I'm not willing to risk the wrath of the AZ Board of Behavioral Health, I suggest that you call, and here are the 2 people that I really, really like. And where the hell's my phone? Hold on a second. Let me go get my phone. Hang on. Hang on. I'm getting my phone. Don't go anywhere. I got my phone. Hang on. All right, there's 2 life coaches that I respect and that I have worked with in training them so that they understand WTF. So the first one is Lauren Archibek. Lauren, L-A-U-R-E-N, Archibek, A-R-C-H, oh shoot, did I spell it wrong? E-B-E-Q-U-E. Could be A-R-C-H-I-B-E-Q-U-E. Anyway, Lauren Archibek, her phone number is 480-276-0443. She is an NLP person. She does NLP. So she does breakthrough sessions. She's not cheap. I'm going to tell you that right now. She's not cheap, but she is effing worth it. She's amazing. So what NLP does is it works on the unconscious stuff. She's not a therapist. She's not a therapist. I want to make that very clear. She's a life coach. But she can help work through those childhood issues, that childhood unconscious stuff that got stuck up there. So I strongly recommend Lauren Archibek. She understands abuse. She gets it. Okay, hang on. And then the next one is Rick Points. Hang on, where did he go? Hello. Hello, where did he go? He's here somewhere. There he is. Okay, Rick Points, 480-220-9992. That's 480-220-9992. Rick Points. Now, the reason I like Rick is he is a life coach. He can do Skyping. Lauren's not so great on the Skyping. She doesn't like the Skyping. She would prefer to have people in person, and I don't blame her because honestly, you're looking at the micro expressions, you're looking for, you know, body language, etc. You don't necessarily get that on Skype. Rick can do Skyping. His area of expertise is addiction. So like any kind of addiction. And now what? You know, it's like, okay, so you're addicted to the intermittent positive rewards. Now what? How are we going to move forward? How are we going to get you off of wanting that thing? So, and I've worked with him to help him, to educate him on narcissistic abuse. So he gets it, and he's a sweetheart. And I just absolutely love him. And actually, in some point, he's actually going to go get his master's degree and become a licensed professional counselor, which then means he won't be able to do Skyping. But right now he can. So go to Rick Points, go to Lauren Archibek. These two are awesome. Okay. All right. So where was I? Regression. So this is normal. And it's normal with anybody, really. So it's kind of like we do this little dance of learning stuff and implementing it, and then freaking out, and then kind of backing off, and then learning it and implementing it, and freaking out and backing off. It's normal, guys, but where it becomes not normal is when the freaking out and backing off is the major part. So instead of 2 steps up and 1 step back, it's like 1 step up and 2 steps back. You don't want to do that. So, okay, where was I? Somebody else also asked me about bedwetting. So bedwetting is really unusual in adults. It's common in kids. It's, you know, but it's unusual in adults. So if something is going on and you're suddenly bedwetting again, there is something in your childhood, I'm guessing probably abuse of some sort, either physical or sexual, that was unresolved, that maybe you don't remember, so that you might want to start working with a therapist on that. And you also want to get here's the thing. Whenever something physical happens, you always want to rule out a possible medical issue. Okay, so, you know, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. So it could be a bladder issue, it could be a bladder infection, it could be a whole bunch of medical things. So what you want to do is you want to rule out physical stuff first. So go get a physical, go get everything checked out, make sure that's okay. If that's not what's going on, or if there are nightmares in conjunction with the bedwetting, then get with a good therapist and start working on whatever happened to cause you to regress to that. EMDR is great. EMDR works really, really, really well with PTSD, CPTSD. It also works really well with dissociation. So that is another thing to keep in mind. Okay, let me think. I was trying to answer some questions. So it is normal to regress. You just want to make sure that it's a 2 step forward, 1 step back, not a 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And also you want to try to figure out what happened. What was the thought? What was the feeling? What did you think right before you started trekking backwards? What happened? So usually what ends up happening is there is some threat that comes into the amygdala. Remember I talked about the amygdala, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn center, that made it really scary. And you know, we had some sort of thought of, oh, it's not safe. I can't do this. I can't be seen. I can't. So fear is the enemy, basically. And Chris Piedmont and I had a really interesting conversation on this, because I told him that I would like to teach courses in fearlessness, because fear is what keeps us stuck in these horrifically abusive relationships. And it's a fear. It can be a real fear, or it can be an imagined fear, or it can be an exaggerated fear, but it's fear. And it's false evidence appearing real. And Chris was like, yeah, but a little bit of fear is good, because you don't want to become like a psychopath and think you're invincible and doing reckless things. And I'm like, you know, I understand that. And I understand, you know, a little bit of fear and recognizing you're not, you know, immortal or invincible. Yeah, I got that. After I did that whole thing in the race car, I just was like, oh yeah, no, that's not my thing. But I think a lot of us, and especially a lot of us who have been codependent, who have that disease to please, we have this irrational fear of being alone. We have this irrational fear of being abandoned. We have this irrational fear of, oh my God, I'm going to die alone. Nobody's ever going to love me. And why is that? Because our abusers kept telling us, nobody's going to love you. You'll never find anybody to love you. You know, blah, I'm the only one, blah, blah, blah. And of course, they've isolated us and made us feel that way, or encouraged us to feel that way. So I think getting rid of the irrational fear is a really good idea. And I think it is important to be fearless in that regards. I think it's important to also be rational and go, okay, if I get into you know, an airplane and dive out with a parachute, yeah, there's a possibility the parachute may not open. So, I mean, you want to be rational about it. But I think fear is what really stops people dead in their tracks. And I think the other thing is it's not only a fear of, oh my God, what if, but I think there's also a fear with us of, oh my God, what if I succeed? So it's like, we know how to fail. We all know how to fail. We're good at failing. We've been failing most of our life. But we're terrified, especially if we've been in an abusive relationship or if we've had a toxic parent, we're terrified of succeeding because now we're seen. Now people see us. Now we're successful. Now we have something to live up to. That's terrifying for a lot of people. And that is something I think that we need to get over. And that's also something that keeps us from progressing in our recovery, is because of that fear. Either the fear of failure, oh my God, I'm going to die alone, nobody's going to love me, my abuser was right, blah, blah, blah. Or, okay, shit, now I'm free, I'm done, I'm alone, now what? What the hell? Who am I? That's a fear. So it's fear that keeps us regressing. It's fear that keeps us stuck. Okay. It's like Lauren always says, I love Lauren and I love NLP, and NLP has been hugely helpful to me. So what NLP says, or the teachers of NLP say, is that there is no stuck. You're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. So you're either progressing or you're regressing. And if you're regressing, there's a reason, and it's usually fear. And it's usually some unconscious thought that you're not even aware of, which is why it's so important to pay attention to what are you thinking, what are you feeling, what are the thoughts, and what happened in your head or what happened externally that caused a thought in your head to make you start going backwards. So regression, yes, it absolutely can and does happen. Backsliding can and does happen. Again, if bedwetting is an issue, you want to rule out any sort of medical issues first, and then you want to go to, okay, it's not a medical issue. Let's work on EMDR. Let's get with a therapist. Let's try to figure out why I'm regressing to the point of bedwetting, that type of thing. Okay, I've got about 12 minutes. I wanted to take a couple of questions. What would be the best treatment for a person who is afraid to be alone and forgets everything you tell them 5 minutes or less after you tell them? That is post-traumatic stress disorder. So again, if you look at the brain scans of somebody who's got complex post-traumatic stress disorder and somebody who's got a quote-unquote normal brain, no trauma, it's really hard because the hippocampus is involved in short-term and long-term memory, the hippocampus hypothalamus. They're involved in our memory, okay? So when we are engaged in fear all the time, there's no room for new memories, okay? There's no room to create, new short-term memory. So that's why it's so hard to get people who are in the midst of CPTSD, PTSD to remember stuff, because their amygdala and hippocampus and hypothalamus are just engaged all the time, and there's no way to create new memories. So repetition, 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 repetition. Did I say repetition? With a side of repetition, an extra helping of repetition. That's the best way to do it, because when the brain hears things over and over and over again, it starts kind of sort of sinking in. Again, it takes, and remember I've said this before, it takes between 1 and 200 times of hearing new information if you're in abuse or if you've got PTSD or CPTSD before things soak in. And the reason why are those brain scans, because your brain is engaged in the hippocampus, hypothalamus, amygdala, survival, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, that whole thing. Okay, hold on. So the treatment for that, the best treatment for PTSD is EMDR. EMDR, because it allows the person to process the trauma, short-circuiting the amygdala, because the amygdala, back up, the amygdala thinks everything is happening right here and now. The amygdala is stupid. 3 O's stupid, like stupid. It cannot tell the difference between a real threat, a thought about a real threat, an emotional threat, a thought about an emotional threat, a daydreaming about a possible future threat, or remembering a past threat. It all feels right here, right now. And that's why we have panic attacks, because it freaks out and goes, oh my God, threat, threat, threat. That tells the hippocampus and the hypothalamus to start telling the body to release cortisol. Our body releases cortisol. We start tensing up. Okay, fight, flight, freeze, fawn. So now we're tense. There's no oxygen CO2 exchange. That tells another part of our brain, really primitive, down on the brainstem, holy shit, there's no oxygen CO2 exchange. We're gonna die. That tells the body to release adrenaline, which the adrenal gland sits on top of the kidney. Now we've got all this adrenaline. shaken like a leaf because we've got all this extra energy because our body is getting ready to run away, kill something, freeze like a bunny rabbit, or give in to the abuser so that we don't get killed, okay? So now we've got all these racing thoughts, no oxygen, CO2 exchange, tense, right? So people either go into a panic attack or they go into a rage attack, and both of them are connected to the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn syndrome. So it's hard to get people out of that. And this is also why a lot of veterans have a lot of anger and rage issues, because they are dealing with that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And instead of going into a panic attack, they go into rage. Because in battle, you don't want to be in a panic attack. You want to be rageful. You want to be killing the enemy so the enemy doesn't kill you. So this is why EMDR is hugely important, because it short circuits this whole cascading series of events, and you're able to recall the event without experiencing it as if it were real, as if it were happening in this moment. So EMDR is really good for that. Wait, fear of success. Please explain why one would be fearful of that. Fear of being judged because you've succeeded. That's part of it, Terry. Absolutely. So there is that fear of being judged because now you're successful, but then there's also that fear of, are you worthy? Self-esteem. How many times do people get up to a certain point of success and then they sabotage? A lot. A lot. Why? Well, is it a worthy issue? I personally believe that it is a self-esteem issue, because people who love themselves do not self-sabotage. They don't, because they know they're worthy. They know their worth. They know that they've worked hard for this, and it's okay for them to reap the rewards. But if somebody's got a self-esteem issue and they start getting successful and they don't believe, they have that imposter syndrome. Oh, I'm not really as smart as I think I am. Oh my God. No, if people really knew who I was, they wouldn't like me. Oh, wow. But I don't deserve it. You know, and then people sabotage, and it's not even conscious. A lot of the time, it's not even conscious. So, for example, when I wrote my first book back in 2011, one of the thoughts that popped up was, I'm okay if this doesn't succeed. I'm okay if it doesn't do well. I'm okay if it doesn't sell. And what's so funny is every single author I have spoken to had the exact same thought. And it was a fear of success. And it had to do with self-esteem. And so that was a good indication to me. Okay, Chris, y'all need to take your own advice and go work on that mirror work and go do the self-esteem workbook and get yourself okay with yourself. So yeah, it is a self-esteem issue. It is that fear of being seen. It is that fear of, okay, I don't deserve it. Dear God, I'm going to, make money off of this. I don't deserve that. Especially if people in your family had a weird connection to money, and they often do in dysfunctional relationships and families. Money is never money. Money is always something else. It's either power or love or affection or a manipulation or whatever. It's never a means to an end in an unhealthy family. In a healthy family, it's like it's a means to an end. In an unhealthy family, there's some emotional string attached to the money. So oftentimes that's a part of the fear of success. If you have a dysfunctional relationship to money, then it's not okay for you to make money, then it's not okay for you to have money, and dear God, you're not worthy, and blah, 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 blah. See where I'm going with that? So anyway, that is the whole fear of success thing. Could there be an addiction to the cortisol or the feelings, conscious or subconscious feelings associated with the release of the cortisol? Cortisol does not really stimulate the endorphins, dopamines, and serotonins. It's not a pleasurable feeling. You're more likely to be addicted to pleasurable feelings. So that's the endorphins, dopamine, serotonin. So those are the ones that gets released when we get that intermittent positive reward, we eat a good meal, there's great sex, those are the feel-good feelings. Usually people are not addicted to feeling horrible. So I don't think so. There wouldn't be a physiological reason for that. There may be a psychological reason for that, but there probably is not a physiological reason for that. Touch on phobias. Okay, I got 5 minutes. All right, phobias. Fear, irrational fear of things. I don't like spiders. I don't like scorpions. I don't, and I live in the Southwest. So there are fears that we get that are usually handed to us, either societal-wise, they've been impressed societally, or they've been taught to us through our family. So if we have a dysfunctional family, they will instill a fear of damn near everything. Why? Because the person who's instilling the fear wants to control. If they can keep the kids terrified, the kids will never do anything. except what they tell them. So what I often see with narcissistic mothers, with narcissistic fathers, is they will terrify those children and make them afraid of everything and give them these fears so that they don't have the wings to fly. Because in a healthy, normal family, yeah, danger is real, guys. Danger is real. Fear is a thought. There's a difference. There is a difference. So danger is real. Walking out in the middle of traffic, not a good idea, okay? But the fear of even walking on the sidewalk, that's a thought, okay? So you've got to separate out the reality of danger and the thought, which is not real. It's just a thought. So danger is real. Fear is a thought. So if it's fear, you've got to learn to tell the fear to mostly go fuck itself sideways with an unlubricated baseball bat, preferably one with splinters, and go do what you need to do. So if I allowed any of the thoughts that I had from my family to really rule me, I wouldn't be here where I am today. I wouldn't be writing my 3rd book. I wouldn't be going on a book tour. I wouldn't be having a successful private practice. I wouldn't be talking to you guys if I allowed those thoughts to stop me. And that's what we do. We allow the thoughts that got shoved into our head from our abusers, from a toxic parent, to stop us. And that's where we start regressing. And that's why it's really, really, really important to start working on, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What was the thought right before you sabotaged yourself? What was going on? That's what you got to start working on. Phobias are just irrational fears that we have been taught. So here's the good news. If we can learn them, we can unlearn them. Now, me with scorpions, here's the deal. I still don't like scorpions. I'm still not a huge fan of spiders. I don't mind the little teeny tiny ones. Those are fine. And even though I know daddy longlegs are actually technically the most deadly spider on the face of the planet, they can't really bite you, so we're safe. Of course, then if the radiation ever takes over and they get big mouths, we're in trouble. But those I'm okay with, and it took me a long time to be okay with them. The ones I'm not okay with are the poisonous ones that can hurt you. So if I see a scorpion, you bet I get my shoes on and I smush the living hell out of them. So, and does that scare me? Yeah, it does, but I do it anyway. Why? Because if I let that damn thing live, it's gonna sting one of us, and I'm not into that. So there's that. Yes, Jessica, I am writing a 3rd book. The 3rd book is going to be on how we feel coming out of the relationship. So the first book was about my dad, which of course I don't have. Why do I start this and don't have anything around me? I don't know. So the first book was What's Wrong with Your Dad, which was about my dad who had borderline personality disorder and probably narcissism. He had narcissistic expression. He was an alcoholic and opiate addict. The second book is You Can Lead a Horse to Water, but You Can't Make him cha-cha, which is my experience in the different types of abusers and the different types of families that come in trying to help the target of abuse, and why some of them get better and why some of them stay in the abuse. And it's fear. They stay in the abuse because of fear. So, and the 3rd book is going to be on recovering. So it's going to be on what happens when you leave an abusive relationship. What is going on? And I've already got the title and I've already started the first chapter. So I'm hoping by probably mid next year it'll be done, because I want to take a little bit more time with that one and really, really write that one through, because we lose ourselves and it's about how to find yourself. So there's that. Oh shit. Okay, I gotta go, guys. So have a wonderful day, and I will try to get the bullying video up. I have to edit it together because it came in 3 parts because my computer was doing the Watusi without me. So I will try to get that up. I will definitely be doing a show on Sunday. And that's it. All right, guys, have a great day, and I will talk to you later. Bye.